And now, Producers Showcase presents the first act of Our Town, starring Frank Sinatra, Eva Marie Saint, and Paul Newman.
Town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just over the line from Massachusetts. Latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. You will like the folks you meet in our town. The folks you meet on any street in our town. Pick out any cottage, white or brown, they're all so appealing, with that lived-in feeling. You will like the shady lanes in our town. Of the passing trains in our town. You will lose your heart, I promise you, in this our 2x4 town. Welcome on the door town. If you make it your town too. The first act shows a day in our town. The date is May 7th, 1901, just before dawn. Yeah, just about. First automobile is going to come along in about 5 years. Brian once made a speech from the town hall steps, right over there. Nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it, as far as we know. And so another day's begun. Doc Gibbs will be coming down Main Street any minute now, coming back from delivering a pair of twins over at Polish Town across the tracks. And here's his wife coming downstairs to get breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. New hospital's named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, a long time ago, in fact. She's up there in the cemetery right now, in with a whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys. And here comes Joe Crowell, delivering the morning papers. Morning, Joe.
Morning, sir. Want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it, thank you.
Morning.
Joe. I'd like to tell you something about that boy Joe Crowell there. Joe was awful bright. He graduated from high school here, head of his class. So he got a scholarship to Boston Tech, MIT, that is. Graduated head of his class from there, too. He was going to be a mighty great engineer, Joe was. But the war broke out and he died in France. Yes, sir, all that education for nothing.
Children, children, time to get up.
And there's Doc Gibbs now.
George, Rebecca. Everything all right, Frank?
Yep. Pair of twins over at Mrs. Goroslowski's. Easy as kittens.
Oatmeal's almost ready. Sit down, drink your coffee. There, the wood box is empty again. I better go across to the Webbs and get some.
How come George let that bin get so low?
You got to speak to that boy, Frank. Something's come over him lately.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about's that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school.
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pa. Morning, Julia. Sorry to trouble you, Myrtle, but my son George has let the wood box get low.
Well, help yourself to whatever you need. Wally'll help you carry it.
That won't be necessary. Morning, children.
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Wally?
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs.
How's your cold today, Myrtle?
Well, I still got that ticklish feeling in my throat. Told Charles didn't know how I'd go to choir rehearsal tonight.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
But I can't seem to do that and stay on key.
Ma, where's breakfast?
There's my children now. Myrtle, after they've gone to school, I got to tell you something. Because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
Julia Gibbs.
Ma, we're gonna be late
See
for
ya
school.
after a while.
Mama, what do you think it is she wants to tell you?
Never you mind. Stop stuffing your mouths, both of you. I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I'm not going to have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth, and that's a fact. Wally, put away that book.
Oh, Ma, by 10 o'clock I gotta learn all about Canada.
You know the rule as well as I do. No books at table. For me, I just soon have my children healthy as bright.
I'm both, Mama. I'm the smartest girl in school for my age, and I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
George, eat your breakfast.
Well, somebody think I was asking for the moon or something.
I said I'd speak to your father after he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents a week's enough spending money for a boy your age. I declare, I don't know how you spend it
Oh,
all.
Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, it seems to me it's good to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I like best in the whole world? Do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
There goes the first bell. I gotta go.
Now, don't choke on your milk, honey.
Oh, me too.
Let me see if you look all right. That's a good girl.
Fast, but you don't have to
Hi,
run.
Emily. Hi, Bob. Hi, George. Hey, Herb! Wally, hold my book for just a second, will you?
Sure.
Hey,
Your pants
Herb,
beneath.
right here.
Hi, George.
Good morning,
Mother, pick up your feet.
Good morning, Mrs. Webb.
Good morning, dear.
Hey, Rebecca, wait.
Now, Julia Gibbs, you were just bursting to tell me something.
Well, Myrtle, did a second-hand furniture man from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he came to see me and Myrtle Webb. He offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
He did, as I'm standing here.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
Well, if I thought I could get the doctor to go away for a trip, I'd take it like that. You know, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris if we ever got the chance.
How did Doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat around the bush a little. I said that if we got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me.
Well, you just keep dropping hints every now and then. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Well, it does seem to me that once in your life before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you very much, ladies. And now we'll skip a few hours. But first, we'd like them to have a little more information about out of town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So I've arranged for you to meet Mr. Webb, editor of our local paper, the Grover's Corner Sentinel. And between Editor Webb and Doc Gibbs and myself, well, we ought to give you a pretty fair account of historical, political, and social. Just as I expected, they're waiting for us. I introduce Mr. Webb. Doc Gibbs, you already know. Gentlemen, you know what we're here for.
You're flat, Doc.
Doc Gibbs, thank you.
The town is Grover's Corners on the Appalachian Range.
2,642 people, number subject to change.
Oldest land in the world with signs of Mesozoic shale.
And 507 more people for the postal district mail.
The men all vote at 21.
And the women vote indirect.
We're mostly Protestants, plus some Democrats. The rest are all suspect. In Grover's Corners, in Grover's Corners, the rest are all suspect.
We're mostly lower middle class with a few professional men.
We're mostly all quite literate, 10% can't handle a pen.
We have our share of inequalities, but in the end we all endure.
All we do about social injustice is discuss who's rich or poor.
We have our moderate drinkers.
One or two we can't correct.
We're mostly Republicans, plus some Democrats. The rest are all suspect. In Grover's Corners, in Grover's Corners, the rest are all suspense.
You were quite good.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Doc, you were fine.
Well, thank you, Brother Webb.
Now, I think we should get back to our town. It's 2 o'clock, and all 2,642 have had their lunches, all the dishes have been washed, and there's an afternoon calm about the town. The children coming back from school. You remember what it's like.
I'll be there in just a second. I gotta bring my book. Hey, wait for me.
Hello, Emily.
Hello?
I'm away to play baseball.
Yes?
That was a real fine speech you gave in class this afternoon.
Well, I was really ready to talk about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Cochran made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. But I'd worked a long time on both of them.
You know, it's a funny thing, Emily. You know, from my window up there, I can just see your head. At nights when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why can't you?
Yeah, and the other night while I watched, I got a real good idea.
What kind?
I thought we might set up a telegraph from my window to yours, and then maybe you could give me kind of a hint or two on one of those algebra problems. Oh, I don't mean the answers, Emily. Oh, of course not. Just a little hint.
I think hints are allowed. So, if you get stuck, George, you just whistle to me and I'll give you some hints.
You're just naturally bright, I guess.
Oh, I just figure it's the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer. So
Farmers can be just as smart as anybody else.
you know, my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm, and if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
The house and everything?
Mm-hmm. Well, guess I better be getting down to the ball field. Well, thanks for the talk, Emily.
You're quite welcome, I'm sure, George.
Hello, Mama. Hello, dear. Come help me string these beans for winter.
Yes, Mama.
I heard you out there talking to George Gibbs. Let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Shows he's growing up.
He's still very young.
But he'd think you were older.
Wish I were.
Don't be impatient. You will be soon enough. Too soon.
Mama, will you answer me a question serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Of course you are. Both my children have good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Oh, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you, yes. Now, that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I never heard such foolishness.
Am I pretty enough to get anybody... to get people interested in me?
Emily, stop that. I'm tired of it. Now, you're pretty enough for all normal purposes.
Oh, Mama. You're just no help at all.
Going through the impatient years, the years when the days seem twice as long, restless and sighing and laughing and crying and dreaming a dream people say is wrong, but they'll journey through the impatient years to each other's arms where they belong. Clinging together, I'm certain they'll weather the warm and stormy, gay and impatient years. Now it's evening, and I think this would be a good time to tell you that they've begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. First, they had to go to Vermont for the marble, I'm sorry to say. But they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for the people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, they put in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel, plus a Bible, and a copy of the Constitution of the United States, and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. Do you know that Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and all we know about them is the names of the kings and some of the copies of wheat contracts and the sales of slaves? We just have to figure that every night all of those families in Babylon, and Greece, and Rome sat down to supper. Father came home from his work. Smoke went up the chimney, same as here. So I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, so that the people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh flight. See what I mean? So people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, in our marrying, in our living, and in our dying. You can hear the choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are at home doing their schoolwork, and the day is running down like a tired clock.
Emily?
Oh,
Hello.
I just can't work at all. That moonlight's so terrible.
Hey, Emily, did you get the answer to the third problem?
Which?
The third.
George, that's the easiest of them all.
I don't get it. Could you give me a little hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer's in yards.
In yards, how do you mean?
In square yards.
Square yards.
Well, yes, George, don't you see?
Yeah.
Square yards of wallpaper.
Oh. Wallpaper. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. That moonlight's so terrible. Choir practice going on. I think if you held your breath, you could hear the train all the way from here to Kentucky. Do you hear it?
Hey, what do you know?
George,
Yes, Pa.
can you come down a minute?
Yes, Pa. Good night, Emily.
Good night, George.
Make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
Me? Well, you know how old I am, Pa.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to do when school is over?
Oh, you know what I want to do, Pa. I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
Mm-hmm. And you will be able to get up early and milk and feed the stock? You'll be able to hoe and hay all day?
Why, sure I will, Pa. What do you mean?
Well, George, when I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. What do you think it was? It was your mother chopping wood. There you see your mother getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, And still, she has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she got tired asking you to do it. Just gave up and decided it was easier to do it herself. And you eat her meals, you put on the clothes that she keeps nice for you, and you run off and play baseball. Like she was some hired girl that we keep around the house, but that we don't like very much. I knew all I had to do was to call it to your attention. Here's a handkerchief, son. George, I've decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not for chopping wood for your mother, of course, but because you're getting older, and I imagine you'll find a lot of things to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Well, I wonder what's happened to your mother. Choir practice was never this late before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't know why she's in her old choir anyway. She hasn't got any more voice than an old crow. Traipsing around the streets this hour of the night. Well, it's about time you retired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Look at that moon with your body aches to go in on a night like this.
Well, we had a real good time.
You're late enough.
Oh, it ain't any later than usual.
Stopping on the corner to gossip with a lot of hens.
Oh, don't be grouchy. Come on out and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. Come on. Isn't it wonderful?
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a little talk with George tonight. I reckon you'll get your wood chopped. For a while, anyway.
You didn't upset the boy, Frank.
Oh, not enough to mention. Come on, get in, get in.
Not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about?
I feel it's my duty to make plans for you to go away for a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no use going over that again. Come on, it's getting late. First thing you know, you'll catch cold.
Oh, you're just unreasonable.
It's 9:30 now, and most of the lights in town are out. There's Constable Warren trying a few doors on Main Street. Here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening.
Evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a moon.
Yeah, quite a moon. Anything big happened in the news tonight?
Read the Morning Sentinel and find out. Good night.
All right, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know, I just can't get to sleep yet. That moonlight's so wonderful. And the smell of Mama's heliotrope, can you smell it?
Yeah. Haven't got any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa. I never told you about that letter that Jane Crowfoot got from her minister when she was 6. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope, the address was like this. It said, Jane Crowfoot, Crowfoot Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, the United States of America.
What's so funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. The United States of America, the continent of North America, the Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, and the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
Well, what do you know?
Yeah, and the postman brought it just the same.
What do you know?
That's the end of the first act, friends. You can grab a snack now. That is, those of you not on a diet. You will lose your heart, I promise you. See you back here in a couple of minutes.
If you make
And now, Producers Showcase presents Act Two of Our Town, starring Frank Sinatra, Eva Marie Saint, and Paul Newman.
Well, 3 years have gone by. The sun's come up over 1,000 times. Some babies who aren't even born have begun talking regular sentences already. A lot can happen in 1,000 days. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Almost everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? The first act was called The Daily Life, and this act is called Love and Marriage. And since we're doing a little singing here tonight, Mr. Leader, if you please. Love and marriage go together like the horse and carriage. This I tell you, brother, you can't have one without the other. Love and marriage, it's an institute you can't disparage. Ask the local gentry, and they will say it's elementary. Try to separate them. It's an illusion. Try, and you will only come to this conclusion. Love and marriage go together like the horse and carriage. Dad was told by Mother, you can't have one, you can't have none, you can't have one without the other. Ya-da-da-da-da. So it's 3 years later. It's 1904, and it's July 7th. Early morning again. Only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and it's been thundering. Don't know now that it might not begin any minute again. There's the 5:10 train for Boston. And there's Mrs. Webb coming down to make breakfast. And Mrs. Gibbs, too. Both of them acting as though this was just an ordinary day. I don't have to point out to the women in our audience that both these ladies cook 3 meals a day, one of them for 20 years and the other for 40. No summer vacation. And they raised 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and never had a nervous breakdown. You know what I mean?
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Don't say another word, Frank Gibbs. I feel like crying every second. Sit down, drink your coffee.
The groom is up shaving himself, only there ain't an awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he was glad to leave us. Every now and then he says, I do to the mirror, but it don't sound convincing to me.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll manage. Why, I arranged his clothes and seen to it his feet were dry and he had warm things on. They're too young, Frank. Emily'll never think of things like that. He'll catch his death of cold within a week. Here, I made something for you.
Why, Julia Gibbs, French toast.
Ain't much. Ain't it hard to make? I had to do something.
I suppose you didn't sleep much last night,
Well,
huh?
I had a lot of hours struck off.
You know, I remember my wedding morning, Julia.
Now, don't you start that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest young fella in the state of New Hampshire. And you know what scared me the most? I was afraid we wouldn't have material for conversation more than it'd last us a couple of weeks. Yes, sir, I was afraid we'd just run out and eat our meals in silence. But we've been conversing for 20 years without any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. Tain't very choice, but I always find something to say.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, George.
4 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where you going?
Going across the grass to see my girl.
You put your rubbers on. It's raining torrents. You don't go out of this house without you're prepared for it.
My, just a step.
You'll catch your death of cold and cough all through the wedding ceremony this afternoon.
George, do what your mother says.
Yes, Pa.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers, but while you're in my house, you live wisely, thank you. Here, have a cup of coffee before you go.
No, I'll be back in a minute. Morning, Mother Webb.
Goodness, morning, George. Why, you frightened me. Now, George, I hate to say it. You can stand here a minute out of the rain, but you understand I can't ask you to come in.
Why not?
George Gibbs, you know as well as I do. A groom's not supposed to see his bride on his wedding day, not till he sees her in church.
Oh, Mrs. Webb, that's just a superstition. Morning, Mr. Webb.
Morning, George.
Well, you don't believe in that superstition, do you, Mr. Webb?
A lot of common sense in superstition, George.
Millions have followed it, and don't you be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
Haven't heard a sound out of her. She's still asleep.
Emily's asleep?
Well, no wonder. We were up till all hours, sewing and packing. Tell you what I'll do, George. You sit down here and drink this cup of coffee with Mr. Webb, and I'll just run upstairs and see that she don't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon there on the stove. You can help yourself, but don't be too long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
What? What kind of common sense could there be in a superstition like that, Mr. Webb?
Oh, you know, on a wedding morning, a girl's head's full of, you know, clothes, one thing or another. You think that's probably it?
Oh, yeah, I never thought of that.
Girls apt to be a mite nervous on her wedding day.
Boy, I wish a person could get married without all that marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has felt that way, George, but hasn't been any use. It's the women folks that build up the weddings, my boy. For a while now, they have it all their own. Man looks pretty small at a wedding, George. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
Well, you believe in marriage, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yeah, sure, George, but something I think I ought to tell you about marriage. My father gave me this advice. He said, never speak to your missus twice. Tell her once and once alone. Then be resolute and stone. If she wants a dress or hat, tell her no and tell her flat. Keep her busy by the kitchen stove. That's where a wife belongs, by Jove. That was my dad's advice. Yes, that was my dad's advice.
Did you believe what your father said?
I didn't believe a word of it, like I never heard of it. I never said boo to my wife, and I've had a perfect married life.
Mr. Webb, I don't follow.
My father said furthermore, he said that a woman's tongue is a squeaking door. Let it squeak till kingdom come. Just pretend you're deaf and dumb. When she asks for money, please, tell her it don't grow on trees. If she boss you around the house, say you're a man and not a mouse. That was my dad's advice. Yes, that was my dad's advice.
Did you do what your father said?
I did the very opposite, like I never heard of it. Our house is the blissfulest house, and you're looking at a happy mouse.
George, Emily's got to come down and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she don't want to set eyes on you, so you run along.
Love and marriage go together like the horse and carriage. To make the cold nights warmer, you must take the ladder for the farmer. Goodbye, George.
Goodbye.
Congratulations, George.
Thanks.
Now I have to interrupt here again. You see, we want to know how all this began, this wedding and this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like that began. You know how it is, you're 21 or 22 and you make some decisions and then, whoosh, you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years and that white-haired lady by your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? Well, now, George and Emily are going to show you the conversation they had when they first knew, well, as the saying goes, that they were meant for one another. I want you to try to remember what it was like when you were very young, and particularly those days when you were first in love. Can you remember that?
Are you sure you won't change your mind about... I've
gotta go home, Louise, but you come over tonight after supper. We'll do our Latin together. Bye.
Hi, Jane.
Hey, Emily! Emily! Hey, Emily, wait up. Can I carry your book for you?
It's not very far, thank you. Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
Well, you've been treating me kind of funny lately.
Have I?
Mm-hmm.
Well, since you asked me, George, I might as well come right out and say it.
Excuse me just 1 minute, will you? Hey, Bob, if I'm late for practice, give Herb some hard high ones. Be there pretty soon.
Yeah, okay, George.
What's the matter with me?
I don't like the change that's come over you in the last year, George. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I've got to tell the truth and shame the devil.
What kind of a change?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. And I used to watch you while you did everything because we'd been friends for so long. And then you began spending all your time at baseball. And you never stopped to speak to anybody. Not to really speak. Not even to your own family, you didn't. And, George, it's a fact. After you got elected captain of the baseball team, you got awful conceited and stuck up. All the girls say so. It hurts me to hear them say it, but... well, I've got to agree with them a little because it's true.
Oh, gosh, Emily, I never knew that such a thing was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fella not to have some faults creep into his character.
Well, I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Oh, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
My father is. As far as I can see, your father is. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be perfect, too.
Oh, see, I feel it's just the other way around, that men aren't naturally good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now, George, that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be perfect as a man because, well, we girls are more nervous. No, I'm sorry I said that all. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily,
I suddenly see that it's not the truth at all, and it's not very important anyway.
Emily, would you like to have an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Yes, thank you, I would.
Good afternoon, George.
Oh, afternoon, Miss Slocum.
Oh, George. Oh, Emily. What'll it be? Why, Emily, what you been crying about?
Oh, she got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. A hardware wagon almost ran over. Everybody says that Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Here, you have a glass of water. You look all shook up.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
By Jove, I tell you, you've got to look both ways before you cross Main Street these days. Gets worse every year. What'll it be?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate, Mr.
Oh,
Morgan.
no, Emily. Have a soda with me.
Well,
2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberries, ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I tell you. Got 225 horses in Grover's Corners right this minute I'm talking to you. And only yesterday the inspector came by and we talked about it. And pretty soon they bring along those automobiles. Why, it'll be safer staying at home every day. I can remember when dogs were able to lie in the middle of Main Street and hardly ever come to be disturbed. Yes, sir. There you are.
they're so expensive.
Oh, don't you think about that, Emily. After all, I'm celebrating.
Celebrating?
I'm celebrating because I got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told to me.
George, please don't say that. I don't know what me
No,
say.
Emily, now you stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did. But you see, I'm going to change. You bet I'm going to change. Well, Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What?
Well, if I go away to State Agriculture College next year, would you write me a letter once in a while?
Oh, I certainly will. Certainly will, George. Certainly seems like being away 3 years, you'd get out of touch with things. Maybe Grover's Corners wouldn't be so important after a while. Think of all New Hampshire. I think it's a very nice town, though.
Oh, Emily, the day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make the letters interesting.
You know, Emily, every time I meet a farmer, I ask him whether he thinks it's important to go to to State Agriculture College to be a good farmer.
Why, George.
Sure, and a lot of them say it's just a waste of time. You can get all that stuff anyway in the pamphlets the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting old. He's just about ready for me to start taking over his farm tomorrow if I could.
My.
Sure. And like you say, being gone all that time in other places and meeting new people, gosh, if anything like that can happen, I don't want to go away. I guess new people probably aren't any better than old ones. I bet they almost never are. Well, I feel as though you're as good a friend as I got, Emily. I don't need to go to other places and meet new people.
But maybe it's important, George. Maybe it's important to go away and learn about cattle judging and soils and all that. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
You don't have to make up your mind right away. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character. And what you said was right, but well, there was one thing wrong with it, and that's when you said that I wasn't noticing people. And you, for instance. You said that you watched me at everything that I did? Well, I was doing the same about you all the time. Sure. I always thought about you as one of the chief people I thought about. I always watched where you were sitting in the bleachers and who you were with. For 3 days now, I tried to walk home with you.
Life's awful funny, George. How could I have known that? I thought...
Emily, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to agriculture college. I think when you found a person that you're fond of, and someone who's fond of you too, who likes you well enough to be interested in your character, well, I think that's just as important as college is. Even more so. That's what I think.
I think that's awfully important, too.
Emily?
Yes, George?
If I improve and make a big change, would you be... I mean... Well, could you be...
I am now, George. I always have been.
Well, now we'll get on to the wedding. In this scene, I take the part of a minister, so that gives me the right to say a few things more. This is a good wedding. The people are pretty young, but they come from a good state, and they chose right. And the people you see here in the church aren't the only witnesses to this wedding. There are ancestors, millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2 just like this young bride and groom today. Millions of ancestors. Well, that's my sermon. Wasn't very long, anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. Suppose there's nothing to cry about. Came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily eating her breakfast just as she's done for 17 years. She's going out of my house. I guess that's it. And Emily. Suddenly she put her head down on the table. She started to cry. Oh, I've got to say it. There's something downright cruel about sending young girls out into marriage like this. I know it's cruel, and I just couldn't get myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter.
George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
George, you wanted it.
No, Ma, listen,
Oh, George, you're a man now.
No, Ma, listen. For the last time I ask you, all I want to do is be a fella.
George, if anyone should hear you. Now, stop. Why, I'm ashamed of you.
What? Where's Emily?
George, you gave me such a turn.
Oh, cheer up, Ma. I'm getting married.
Let me get my breath a minute.
Ma, look, now you say Thursday nights. Emily and I are coming over every Thursday. Oh, Ma, you look all funny. What are you crying for? Come on now, we gotta be ready for this.
I never felt so all alone in my whole life. And George, Papa, I just hate him. I just wish I were dead, Papa.
Now, Emily, don't get upset.
But, Papa, I just don't want to get married, Papa.
Emily, everything's all right.
Papa, why can't I stay the way I am for just a little while, Papa? Don't let's go away.
Emily, now stop and think a minute.
Don't you remember what you used to say, that I was your little girl? There must be lots of places we could go, Papa, and I'd keep house for you and I'd work for you, Papa.
Now, Emily, you mustn't think like that. Now, you're just nervous, Emily. No. George, come here a minute. Emily, why, George is one of the finest fellows in the whole world. You're marrying a fine fellow.
Papa.
George, I'm giving my daughter away. Do you think you can take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to. I want to try. I'll do my best, Emily. Emily, I love you, and I need you.
If you love me, help me. All I want is for someone to love me.
I will, Emily. I'll try.
Forever and ever. Do you hear? Forever and ever.
They're waiting for us. Now you know everything's all right? Come on.
Do you, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, to love and to cherish, till death do us part?
I do.
Do you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, to love and to cherish, till death do us part?
I do.
Place the ring, George. I've married 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. I suppose I do. M marries N, millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the flivver, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting.
Wasn't it a wonderful wedding? Wasn't she a beautiful bride? Everyone had such a wonderful time. They cried and cried and cried and cried. Mother of the bride was so nervous. She left a pail of tears in the service. A privilege nary a mother should be denied. She cried and cried and cried. And cried. A beautiful bride. Friends and neighbors dropped their neighbors. They shout and shout and shout. You swear they just been robbed. Wasn't it a wonderful wedding? Wasn't she a beautiful bride? Everyone had such a wonderful time. They cried and cried and cried and cried. The father of the bride was delirious. Whoever thought he'd take it so serious? It'll take years for the handkerchiefs to get dry. They cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried.
That's all the second act, folks. Now you'll pardon me while I go kiss the bride.
And now, Producers Showcase presents Act 3 of Our Town, starring Frank Sinatra, Eva Marie Saint, and Paul Newman.
Well, this time 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer 1913. And this cemetery is an important part of Grover's Corners. It's way up on a hilltop, a windy hilltop. Lots of sky, lots of clouds, often lots of sun and moon and stars. Yes, it's a beautiful spot up here. Town cemetery ought to be in a nice green spot. There's your friend Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so much, remember? And Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, one who had to learn about Canada by 10 o'clock. He's here, too. His appendix burst while he was on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow has sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill. But the dead don't stay interested in us living people very long. Gradually, they get indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something they feel is coming. Something important and great. All those things we living people feel so important kind of grow pale around here. Like, for instance, this funeral here today.
is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Well, I declare, the road coming up must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth. It was her second, with a little boy, 4 years old.
Childbirth. I'd forgotten about all that. My, wasn't life awful?
Yes.
And wonderful?
Yes.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a wonderful wedding? Wasn't she a beautiful bride? And I remember calling on her and George in their new farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful farm.
It's on the same road we lived on.
A right smart farm.
I always loved that hymn. I was hoping that they'd sing a hymn.
Hello, Mother Gibbs. Emily.
Why, it's raining.
Yes. They'll be gone soon. Just rest yourself.
Seems thousands and thousands of years since I last... Papa remembered that that was my favorite hymn. I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. Mother Gibbs, George and I made that place into the best farm you ever saw. We thought about you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn, the great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought that out of the money you left us.
I did?
Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs? The legacy you left us. It was over $350.
Yes, Emily.
It has a new patent device on it so that the water never overflows and it never goes below a certain point they have there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me. But it's a lovely farm. They don't understand, do they?
No, dear. Not very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? It seems thousands and thousands of years since I last saw them. My little boy is spending the day at Mrs. McCarthy's. Mr. McCarthy, my little boy is spending the day at your house.
Is he?
He just loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a new car. Never gives any trouble. I don't drive, though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away? Being part of them, how long does it last?
Shh, dear, just wait and be patient.
I know. They're finished. They're going. Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George. Mother Gibbs, I never realized how troubled and how in the dark life persons are. Just look at him. I loved him so. From morning till night. That's all they are, trouble.
A little cooler than it was.
The rain has cooled it off a little.
But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back into living. I feel it.
I know it. Just then when I was thinking about the farm. For a minute I was there. And my little baby was sitting on my lap just as plain as day.
Yes, dear, of course you can.
One can go back and live all those days over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go back and live there again.
A few have tried, but they soon come back here.
I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day I first knew I loved George. Why should that be painful?
Because you not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes?
You can see what they down there don't know. You can see the future, what happens afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
Emily, when you've been here longer, you'll understand. Our life here is to forget all that and think only of what is ahead and be ready for what is ahead.
How can I forget all that, Mother Gibbs? It's all I've known. It's all I ever had.
Oh, Emily, it's not wise, really, it isn't.
But I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day in your life. It will be important enough.
Then it can't be since I've been married. Or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday at least, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right. It's February 11th, 1899. It's a Tuesday. Would you like any special time of day?
I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. It had been snowing through the night. They'd begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
There's the drugstore before they changed it. And there's the livery stable. Here's Main Street. This is the town I knew when I was a little girl.
Yes, it's 14 years later.
There's the white picket fence that used to be around our house. I'd forgotten all about that. I loved it so. Are they inside?
Yes, your mother will be coming down to make breakfast any minute.
Will she?
Yes, your father had been away, remember?
No.
He came back on the early morning train. He'd been to his college making a speech.
Yes.
In Western New York.
Yes.
Wally, Emily, time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. How young Mama looks. I never realized Mama was ever that young.
Come and dress by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Your eyes, dear, that's all. I laid it out for you special on the dresser. Then a snake, it'd bit you.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
How'd it go, Charles?
Oh, fine, I guess. I told him a thing or two. Everything all right here?
Can't think of anything that's happened special. It's been right cold.
Paper have any mistakes in it?
None that I noticed. Coffee's ready there if you want it. Oh, Charles, did you remember? It's Emily's birthday. Do you remember to get her something?
Got her something right here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Don't interrupt her now, Charles. She's slow enough as it is. Children, it's 7 o'clock now. I don't want to have to call you again.
Just can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Why do they ever have to grow old? Mama. I'm here, Mama. I'm grown up. And I love you all, everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Can I go in?
Yes.
Good morning, Mama. Well, happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. Some presents for you there on the table.
You shouldn't have, Mama.
good breakfast. I want you to grow up to be a good, strong girl. That and the blue papers from your Aunt Carrie. I reckon you can get who's who brought over the postcard album. I found it on the doorstep when I went out to get the milk. George Gibbs must have come over in the cold real early. It was nice of him.
I'd forgotten all about that.
I want you to chew this bacon good and slow. It'll help keep you warm on a cold day.
Mama. Mama, look at me for 1 minute as though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead, Mama. You're a grandmother. I married George Gibbs. Wally's dead, Mama. His appendix burst on a camping trip to Crawford Notch. We just felt terrible about that, Mama, don't you remember? But, Mama, at this moment, we're all together now. Mama, at this moment, we're happy. Mama, let's look at one another.
That and the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you might like it.
This is from you, Mama? It's what I've always wanted, Mama. It's lovely, Mama. It's beautiful, Mama. It's beautiful.
Well, I'm glad you like it, dear. Wally's got something for you, too. He made it in manual training class, and he's real proud of it. You make a big fuss over it. Your father's got a surprise for you, too. I don't even know what it is myself. Shh, here he comes now.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
It goes so fast.
Yes?
What could I have done? What could I do if I were there now?
Look to your heart when there are words to say, and never leave your love unspoken. Day by day we go our thoughtless way, and only when we pray do we remember those we love. Too late we find a word that's warm and kind is more than just a passing token. Speak your love to those who seek your love. Look to your heart. Your heart will know what to say. Look to your
We don't have time for this, I never realized that. All that was going on. And we never noticed. Take me back. Up the hill. To my grave. But one more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Goodbye to clocks ticking. and Mama, and Papa, and my butternut tree, and Mama's heliotrope, and food, and coffee, and new iron dresses, and hot baths. Earth, you're too wonderful for anyone to realize you. Do any human beings ever realize life? Why they live it every minute?
No. Saints and poets, maybe. Some do.
I'm ready to go back. Were you happy then? No. I should have listened to you.
Look, it's clearing up. The stars are coming out.
There's one of them coming.
That's funny. Take no time for him to be here.
Goodness sakes.
Mother Gibbs, it's George.
Shh, dear. Just rest yourself.
It's George.
Goodness sake. That ain't no way to behave.
He ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs,
Yes, Emily?
they just don't understand, do they?
No, dear. They don't understand.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins down at the depot has just watched the Albany train go by. Yeah, it's clearing up now. There are the stars doing their old crisscross in the skies. You know, scholars haven't settled matters yet, but they seem to think that there are no living beings up there. Just chalk or fire. Only this one is straining away all the time to make something of itself. The strain is so great that every 16 hours, everybody lies down and gets a rest. 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. Everybody's resting in Grover's Corners. Tomorrow's going to be another day. You get a good rest, too. Good night.